Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Knights, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch, and if you're looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 32 of Breaking Step. Why isn't there a time shield in this room? Jekyll asked as he gathered the loot of the dissolving bodies I'd left behind. It'd be nice to know how long we have left until we need to leave. Tibs exited the corridor into the hallway and tested the walls there. I don't think the dungeon can do that here, Don said. With how the walls move against each other, they'd either be destroyed or tell us which walls won't move no matter what we do. They were silent as Tibs went over every section of the wall he hadn't tested before, leaving him with only one in the main hall, the one that led to the switch to exit. You have to stop taking a risk with the others, Don said. This isn't a risk, Tibs replied. What if one of them had moved and closed the corridor we were in? The first push of any wall doesn't trigger anything, Tibs said. The dungeon doesn't want me to see what will happen. So he's forcing me to step in for the second push. You don't know it's always going to be like that. It makes changes, remember? Tib shrugged as he pushed the wall. There were no distant groans of stone against stone. He looked at Don. It hasn't happened. Yet, the sorcerer stated. We haven't gone far enough in this puzzle to be sure of anything we've seen. You need to be more careful with the team. Tib shrugs. Of your friends? Don added, and Tib stared at him. How is that different? The armor looks to be ordinary, Jekyll said, joining them. The sword's edge shimmers, so it's probably enchanted. We have coins and these. He handed Don and Tibs 2 bottles of the yellow liquid that replenished essence. I'm okay, Tibs said, as Don stored his in the hard pouch where he kept all the bottles and vials they came across. This is for later, Jekyll said. You know, when we have to use everything we have and more to defeat the boss creatures. I'm not going to run out. What was Jekyll bothering him with that? He knew his reserve was so vast he never needed to drink those. Keep the rest for Don, Mez said. He can make use of them when he's training. Training himself is what's limiting how much time he puts into that. Maz, I don't share my problem with you so you can tell everyone. Tibs pushed the wall again. I'm not everyone, Jekyll stated. I'm the team leader. And the stronger you get, Mez added, the better it is for the team. Tibs reached the switch. And tested the other 2 walls. Keep one, Don said. I don't want to learn to depend on them when I'm running out. Part of what I'm training is figuring out how to be more efficient with what I have. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of what we are taught can be accomplished by throwing a lot of essence at it instead of being precise. The one opposite the switch moved, and it didn't have an accompanying groan. Tibs has mentioned that fact at one point, Kumdar replied. It's why some adventurers forget how difficult what we learn is, Tibs said. They get used to throwing ever more essence at what they can do. He stepped to the wall, and the others hurried to join him. It moved, and another one did so elsewhere in the room. It is often how things go, the clerk said. The overuse of one thing will often lead to the result that can be achieved by following the correct way. Nothing visible moved, Mess said, returning. If you don't care what gets broken in the process, Jekyll added, as Tib pushed again. No corresponding groaning, but there was one with the next push. A lot like if you oversaturate yourself with essence, Don said. It could have unintended consequences. The wall didn't go further, and it was the left one that moved 4 times, and it revealed an opening to the right. Every other push came with a distant groaning. Yes! Jekyll exclaimed as the chest in the middle of the large room. Then he walked into the wall of hard water Tibbs blocked the entrance with. They was simple to form into a filigree and slip into the etching. Ow! Jekyll stated, looked at Tibbs, then rubbed his nose as if it had hurt. You go in after I've checked for traps. Don tapped the water, then peered through it. How advanced is your training? Tibbs shrugged. He pulled the filigree out, and Don jumped as the water fell to the floor. You did that on purpose, he snapped, looking his robe over for a wet spot. Yes. Tibbs pulled the drops out of the robe and joined them to the water on the floor as he spread it. I'm using it to check the floor for traps. He added more water. The room was four tiles on each side of the entrance and 9 deep. There are. He felt for where the triggers were. Distance wasn't always easy to determine through water. Something about how it flowed made it imprecise as a measuring tool. You could have warned me, Don said. Afraid of water? Jekyll asked. I don't want my robe to get wet. This fabric isn't one that does well with water. But it's fine with getting ripped and bloody? The fighter asked. Don sighed. Yes, it's not rational, but this was expensive. I'd like to try and not having needlessly damaged. Jekyll, Mez said. Maybe now we could? Tibbs, what do you think? He shrugged. Whatever they were talking about wasn't as important as working out if turning the water to ice within the trigger would prevent it from activating or the opposite. I guess it can wait. It can wait. Something else you aren't telling me, Don asked sharply. Just as there is much you are not telling us, is there not? Kamdar encountered. Oh, like you're so forthcoming with information, the sorcerer replied. We all have secrets, Jekyll said with finality. Believe it or not, we are used to that. Tibbs smiled. Again, he was clever, but not clever enough. All he needed to do was ice part of the trigger to jam it. The room's safe, he absorbed the water. I'm going to check the chest. Halfway to it, the essence above him shifted. Trap! He yelled, forming a sword and shield. He'd worry about what he'd missed after. Someone's getting overconfident. Again, he cackled as Knowles dropped through the doorway in the ceiling. The ice cracked at her tone, and he turned his anger on at the closest creature, snarling as he slashed it before it touched the ground. More cracks, and he slammed his shield into another gnoll, the spikes on it bursting through and causing it to stagger away. They were tougher than usual. More fell around him. That's it? Ganny mocked. Where's the usual Tibbs, all cool and collected, as he dispatched everything me and Stowe sent at him? He yelled as he cut a gnoll and cracks spread. He killed another, and understanding of what she was doing only caused more cracks in the ice. Is that all it's going to take to bring down the mighty Tibbs Lightfinger, hero of the dungeon? I really thought you had more essence in you. How about you actually do something, Tibbs? He elongated the blade, and it cracked. The blade, and it cracked. As he also tried to fill in the cracks, he cursed. He couldn't afford to split his attention. He hardened his sword, swept an arc to give himself space to breathe. The tank, but more knoll dropped to replace those that fell. She couldn't be seriously looking to kill him, could she? They were friends. He added metal to his armor. Well, he and Stowe were friends. She'd never liked that Stowe did what Stowe did because of their friendship. A club to his shoulder dropped him to a knee, and he stretched his shield over his head to block the following blows. His essence was intact, so the armor had taken the hit. He needed to do something, but from his position, his swings did little more than graze the knolls surrounding him. Staying on the defensive wasn't going to work. He envisioned a netching, but the strain of the hit broke his focus. He cursed. He needed something easy to fight back with, something raw, something to teach Ganny. She shouldn't have messed with him like this. He reached for fire. The angry roar accompanied the crash through the knolls. Then someone was beside him, filled with earth, and pushing the attack away. I'm here, Jekyll snarled. What the fuck are you up to? he yelled as he sent Knowles flying. Finally able to breathe, Tibs realized what he'd been about to do. He filled the cracks, iced them even harder, and stood. He flung water which fell through it, and where it Okay, I need to fix something because this was not fell. Fell made it hard. So do I change this? You know what? Yeah, I'm going to change this. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't work when I do another pass, I'll change that. Change it later. Finally, he flung water which fell through it, and where it hit the knoll, it slowed them, kept them from pulling their limbs up to swing. The heat of fire spread as the arrows cut down the creatures on the outside. He caught glimpses of someone dark slipping between the knoll, as if there was more space than Tibs saw. Striking them with his staff, and more screamed as they melted into purple goo. He threw the ice knife at the knoll, readying himself to strike Cumdar in the back. The pommel hit it, but it was enough of a distraction. The cleric became aware and dispatched it. The save cost him a serrated bone sword in the side, and Tibs Loctite with that knoll as he filled it with water, iced that, and shattered it. Then he proceeded on helping his team exterminate all of them. What was that? Jekyll yelled at the ceiling once it was only the 5 of them alive, if not all standing. Cumdar was on his back, catching his breath. Maz and Don were seated against the wall, an empty healing bottle next to each. It's okay, Tibs said. I know what she was trying to do. She failed. That makes one of us, Don said. That was nothing like the previous fights. Is it going back to eating everyone? He sounded scared. No, Tibs stated. Are there going to be more attacks like that? Don asked. I don't know, Tibs said when Gandhi remained silent. Maybe we should call this run done, Mez said. The dungeon is clearly in. No, Tibs headed for the chest. I'm not letting her get away with this. He coated it with water, pushing it into every gap. He added filigree of fey and pulled in all directions. The chest resisted. Tibs, stop! Stowe yelled as the chest broke apart, and Tibs groaned. Oh, you're alive? Stowe said calmly. What happened? He mumbled. He filled the cracks in his eyes as he pushed to his side. Then sitting, now wasn't the time to lose control. I think, Don said, that you may have broken the dungeon. It takes more than that to break me, Stowe replied. But it did hurt. He forced an eye open, then the other snapped as he stared at the hole in the wall on the opposite side of the room. It was 6 of the tiles wide, a bowl that reached 3, maybe 4 of them deep. Part of the floor and ceilings were gone too. How? He asked. You broke the chest open, Stowe replied, and shattered the weave that formed it. I think, Don said, something uncertain, that you gave us a demonstration of what happens when void essence is exposed to the rest of the world without control. Tibs stared at the sorcerer. That doesn't happen when the attendant used void essence. That's controlled use. Void isn't an essence that's found emotion around them. I don't know why. I've yet to come across a book that touches on that. I did read one containing the summary of an experiment where the sorcerers were going to create a point of void, then simply let go of it. What happened? Jekyll asked. Then, when the sorcerer didn't continue, Don shrugged. I don't know. The only thing added to the summary is a list of material and their price. Looking at that, I guess it's what needed to be rebuilt, what was needed to rebuild the section of the academy. I doubt anyone close enough to witness what happened survived. Then how are we still alive? Az asked. That thing just threw us across the room hard enough to knock me out. I don't know, Don said, something at a loss. The experiment dealt exclusively with void, while the chest would have a weave of it and other elements. There was no description of what the destruction looked like, so maybe those sorcerers were also thrown away, but since they were in a building instead of a dungeon, the other floors crashing down on them is what killed them. I'm just glad we had potions, because I'm not sure any of us would have gotten up from that anytime soon without healing. You knew this would happen, Tibs stated, standing. How? Don protested. I didn't even know it was possible to break one of those. I've been experimenting with essence, Tibs, Still said, but I'm with Dawn. I didn't think you could break one of them open. And you want me to let go of ice? He accused. Sorry? Don looked at the others. Am I missing something? So much, Jekyll replied. If you don't let go willingly, Still said, and somewhere able to take the resulting damage, Tibs, what's going to happen when you push too far and you break? I believe this demonstration gave us much to think about, Commodore said, as to the consequences of what you are doing. Jekyll sighed, looking the room over. That's going to be it for the run. Hopefully, the switch still works. Otherwise, we're going to find out what's the dungeon like overnight. He looked around again. And I hope that's repaired when the next team's on this floor tomorrow, because I don't want the guild come asking what we did when they report about broken rooms. That's not going to be a problem, Still said with a chuckle. This is easy to repair. Tibs studied the damage that one chest had caused. How difficult would it be to sneak one of them into the guild and cause it to break with Marger standing next to it? He turned to exit, and Jekyll was studying him intently. And that concludes Chapter 32 of Breaking Step. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, it is available for free on Royal Road, along with previous books. If you're looking to support me, my Patreon is about 20 chapters ahead of what's on Royal Road. And if you're looking to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the note, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.